You are murderers. Every day, women die at your hands. I know it. I have the numbers. And deep down, you know it too.
Vienna, 1861, the lecture hall of the Faculty of Medicine. Silence. No one stands up to argue. They just stare. In Ignaz Semmelweis's maternity ward, 1 in 10 women died during childbirth. In the ward next door, it was only 1 in 30. This had been going on for years. No one had ever bothered to compare the data. But Semmelweis did. And he realized something horrifying. Doctors were coming straight from the autopsy room, fresh from handling corpses, to deliver babies, without washing their hands. He introduces a chlorine solution. Within a month, the mortality rate drops tenfold. The chief physician shuts the experiment down. Because if Semmelweis is right, it means the chief physician has been killing his own patients for 20 years, with his own hands, his own authority, his own tradition. And he makes a choice. He'd rather keep killing. Than admit he was a killer. Semmelweis publishes a book. The professors don't read it. Or if they do, they stay silent. He writes open letters to every leading obstetrician in Europe. 1 word in every letter: murderers. His wife and colleagues commit him to a mental asylum. The guards beat him upon arrival. 14 days later, he dies. From sepsis, the very infection he fought. He was infected by the doctors who treated him, doctors who, once again, hadn't washed their hands. He was right from day one. He proved it. He screamed it for 14 years, and he still died first. Why does the truth always arrive second, and who is forced to pay the price first? But wait, before we judge these doctors, let's understand the world they lived in. Germs don't exist yet. Pasteur won't publish his theory for another 20 years. The world is ruled by the miasma theory, the belief that diseases are caused by bad air, foul vapors. In that logic, your hands have nothing to do with it. More than that, a doctor's dirty hands were a status symbol. In the 19th century, a doctor was a gentleman, and a gentleman, by definition, cannot be dirty. Showing up to a delivery room straight from an autopsy meant you were a man of science. You were doing the real work. To tell such a doctor to wash his hands was like telling a priest to dust off the icon because it's dirty. It was an attack on the sacred. Semmelweis didn't just suggest hygiene. He called gentlemen filthy. He told the medical elite, you are the source of death. And yet, he couldn't explain why. He had numbers, but no theory, no mechanism. Data without an explanation isn't seen as science. It's seen as superstition. And that's exactly how his colleagues saw him. A talented but unstable man who found a correlation and mistook himself for a prophet. They were wrong, but their logic was internally consistent. And this isn't an exception. It happens everywhere. In Meiji-era Japan, master craftsmen refused European machinery. In 1790s France, peasants faced cannons with wooden pitchforks, not for the king, but for the right to rest on Sunday. Every time it's the same picture. The new arrives with evidence, logic, and data, and time and again it hits a wall that arguments cannot breach. Because the enemy isn't ignorance. The enemy is something much deeper. When a person spends years pouring themselves into a craft, a profession, or a way of life, it stops being just a skill. It becomes their biography, their body, their way of seeing the world. Semmelweis's colleagues didn't just wash their hands differently. They were doctors of a certain order, with a certain reputation. To admit their method was wrong was to admit they had spent their lives doing harm, that the mountain of corpses behind them wasn't God's will, it was their fault. The brain won't go there, not out of cowardice, but because it's unbearable. Tradition is anesthesia. It allows people to do terrible things without feeling like monsters. If Semmelweis is right, then the chief physician isn't a luminary of science. He's a serial killer. Who among us is ready to wake up and realize that for the last 20 years, we haven't been the hero, but the executioner? And here is the second layer. In moments of fear and instability, tradition provides instant answers. Who you are, where you belong, what is right, how to live. A new idea demands you become both a philosopher and a hero. Tradition only demands one thing, that you repeat what your ancestors did for 400 years. You can switch off your mind, but you can't switch off your body. The new always arrives to an empty room. It brings ideas, proof, and the future, but it comes alone. The old is sitting at a table set for 100 people. Everyone there has already paid with their years, their reputation, their identity. There are always more people who have already paid than those who are just about to. This isn't a vote, it's gravity. March 2020. You remember that time. You were washing your grocery bags, pressing elevator buttons with your elbows, wiping your phone with antiseptic, because official medicine said the virus is transmitted via surfaces and large droplets. Wash your hands, keep your distance. This was the protocol, a protocol that was 60 years old. Since the 1960s, medical textbooks stated it clearly. Large particles fall, small particles fly. That was all you needed to know about transmission, tradition. At the same time, Linsey Marr, a professor at Virginia Tech and an aerosol expert, is watching this and seeing something else entirely. She knows how air moves. She knows how particles behave. And the data is telling her one thing. This virus doesn't fall. It hangs, like cigarette smoke in a closed room, for hours. She wasn't saying stop washing your hands. She was saying open the windows. But a system that already has a proven answer doesn't hear the second one. Because insufficient sounds too much like incorrect. The WHO responded to Linsey Marr in almost the same words that Semmelweis's colleagues used. Airborne transmission is not proven. We have a protocol. The whole world spent billions disinfecting surfaces. People were getting infected in stuffy offices and crowded buses because a 1960s textbook turned out to be more important than physics. The WHO finally acknowledged airborne transmission a year and a half later, quietly, in a single line, in an updated manual, no press conference. Semmelweis screamed for 14 years. Linsey Marr waited for 18 months. Progress accelerates. The mechanism does not. And here's the important part. You were there. In March 2020, you were washing those grocery bags too, because the system gave you a clear action in a moment of terror, and you took it. That is how tradition works. It doesn't convince you. It's just there, standing by with a ready-made answer, right when you are most afraid. When we look at Semmelweis's colleagues, or the WHO in 2020, it's easy to think the problem is them, their cruelty, their conservatism, their fear of change. But the problem wasn't the people. The problem was that tradition isn't a brake, it's gravity. You can build a plane to overcome gravity, but you can't build a world where gravity doesn't exist. If you remove the old pillars without creating a clear replacement, the system won't fly. It will just crumble. Semmelweis showed up with the truth, with data, with numbers, and he expected that to be enough. But data is never enough, unless there is a bridge between what is and what should be, a bridge that allows people inside the system to cross over, without feeling like they are betraying themselves. Tradition wins first, not because it's right, but because it has something a new idea almost never has: built-in protection for those who participate in it. Until a new idea has that same protection, it will lose, over and over again, regardless of the quality of the evidence. Somewhere, right now, there is a 25-year-old. They've just mastered something. They are the best in the room. They are pouring their soul into it. Their craft is becoming part of their very bones. And somewhere, in another room, something is already working. That will turn that person into a Semmelweis 30 years from now. Not because they are bad, not because the system is cruel, but because the world will eventually ask them to become someone else. And they won't hear, "Your tool is obsolete." They will hear, "You are obsolete." Someday, someone young will come to you. They will have charts, data, and a new way of doing the thing you've believed in for 30 years. And in that moment, something inside you will want to stop them. Not because they are lying, but because they are right. The question isn't how to avoid this. You can't. The question is, will you be able to wash your hands in that moment? Or will you choose to remain in your rightness? Standing knee-deep in whatever that rightness leaves behind.